young. I'll cherish that. But thank you again for inviting me to give this talk. So what I'm going to do is, I started sort of analyzing COVID data uh, early on when it kind of hit New York. So can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. And I'm going to go full screen now. It's still visible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, middle of March, I got very interested in kind of trying to understand what's going on, because at that time nobody knew what was going on. It suddenly hit New York, and New York was pretty badly hit. So, and this is synthetic control is something that I've been working on for the past couple of years with my collaborator Devrat Shah, who often visits TIFR. He's also works closely with Sandeep. So he got me into synthetic control, and then I've been trying to sort of work on the theory and applications of synthetic control with him and others. And so what I'm going to do today is I'll talk about, first I'll give a very brief background of what synthetic controls is, and then I'll tell you how we've been trying to analyze this COVID-19 data, COVID-19 spread using the idea of synthetic controls. And then in the process of sort of analyzing, I kind of went back into a classical control theory model to predict the evolution. So this is joint work with my collaborator, Chris Hollett. I've done a lot of TCP congestion control work with him, and then we sort of started working, and we have some results there. And finally, I'll present some ongoing work, conclusions, and then I'll open it up for questions. But you can feel free to interrupt me anytime if you have questions, and I'm happy to answer questions. So let's start with a brief background on synthetic controls. So the synthetic control is an empirical methodology for causal inference. Go ahead, it should be causal, using observational data. So this is a technique that was introduced by this economist Alberto Abadi, MIT, and in the early 2000s. And the canonical example for it was analysis of this policy called Prop 99 in California. So Prop 99 was this policy that California imposed, implemented in 1988, where they imposed a 25-cent tax on every packet of cigarettes sold, and an equivalent tax on other tobacco products. And the idea was that, first of all, it'll make cigarettes more expensive, so less people would buy. Secondly, the revenue that they raise from this tax, they would use for various environmental and healthcare programs, do educational sort of talks in schools, colleges on the harms of tobacco, and fund anti-tobacco and cancer research related to tobacco. So they did that. They raised hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. They increased the price of cigarettes, and people saw that smoking had gone down. So there were two important questions. First, did smoking go down? The answer was yes. Secondly, the more important and the more difficult question was it because of Prop 99, or did society move on from smoking? National averages also fell. So, in an ideal world, what you would do, you'd have two copies of California, one with Prop 99 and one without Prop 99. And unfortunately, we cannot do that. So the idea that sort of the brilliant insight that Alberto Abadi had was to build a synthetic control. So this is, in classical testing, we do A/B testing, where A is your treatment group and B is your control group. Here, since you cannot have a control group, what you do is you construct a synthetic control group of the treatment unit using untreated donor units as sort of a donor pool. So the idea is that you can represent California as a linear combination of the other 49 states of the US. So assume, let's think of the time series of per capita smoking in California. So imagine that to be the row of a matrix, and the other rows are again that same time series of per capita smoking, let's say weekly or monthly averages for the other states. So now you have this matrix. where every row represents a state and the columns are, time bins. And so every row will be a time series of per capita smoking. Now, smoking trends are correlated. They're not exactly the same, but they're correlated across states. The societal awareness of smoking is similar. People get aware of the harms of smoking, and economy and all. They are all kind of correlated, but not exactly the same. So when you do this, what you can do is, okay, now you take the smoking data of California and go up to the date when Prop 99 was implemented. So that's 1988. And then you match the time series of California and you try to approximate it using the time series of the other states and a linear combination of that. And the high level idea of, the linear algebra idea here is that this matrix is approximately low rank because there's a lot of correlation between the rows. And when it's, low rank, you can represent any row as a linear combination of other rows. So that's sort of the idea, and it actually works in practice. So now what you can do is you build a model for California using the other states pre the intervention, and then post intervention, post Prop 99, you compare actual California with synthetic California. If you see a difference, then you can say, oh, well, Prop 99 made a difference. If you see no visible difference, then you say, okay, Prop 99 had no effect. So here you can see the result of the analysis. So on the left graph, you see the synthetic control view of the impact of Prop 99. The dashed line, the vertical line, is the day this Prop 99 was passed. The curve to the left is based on the dash curve that you see. That is the synthetic model. So curve to the left of this vertical line is how we build this dash curve using training data between actual California and the other 49 states. So the dashed line is created entirely from data from other 49 states. And you can see that there's a good strong match. Post Prop 99 passage, you see the solid line is actual California, and the dashed line now is made from completely data from other 49 states. There's no California data there at all. And you can see that there's a difference between California and synthetic California. Smoking fell much sharper in actual California versus synthetic California. So you can say that, Prop 99 did have an impact. It sort of accelerated the sort of decline in smoking. The conventional A/B testing view is what you see on the right, where you compare California, which is a solid line, with the rest of the US, which now becomes your B, the control group. And you can see that although you can say that, Prop 99 made a difference, but it's not immediately obvious from this, this kind of analysis. So you can also think of synthetic control as, a much more refined way to do A/B analysis. You build a statistically closer model of your treatment group using the control groups. You use components of control groups to build a better model, and that will give a much more informative answer of the counterfactual, what if there was no Prop 99. So in the COVID scenario, what we can do is, if we can do this synthetic control analysis, is we can ask and answer questions like, what if there was no lockdown? And what if schools were closed earlier? What kind of impact would have it had? Or if we are opening up, what if we don't open up? Or what if we delay opening up by a few days or a few weeks? Now, before I go on to COVID analysis, one thing that you might wonder and ask here is that the fit that we see on the left, that could just be, overfitting of data. How do we know that this actually works? It's actually capturing something inherent in the system. Given enough additional rows and the limited time points that you have, you can fit sort of anything to anything. So how do you verify that this technique actually works? So the way you do it is, what you do is you create a synthetic control model for a placebo. Let's say you take a state like Colorado. Colorado did not have Prop 99, right? So what you can do is, again, take the date of the passage of Prop 99, 1988, build a model for Colorado, using the other 48 states. Now we won't use California. So again, you can build a nice model. Now what you do is now you compare synthetic Colorado to actual Colorado past this date of Prop 99. Now, as far as this scenario is concerned, Prop 99 is a placebo here. There was no Prop 99. So the expectation is that if this is really capturing something inherent about the system, then synthetic Colorado and actual Colorado should match post this Prop 99 passing date. And so when there is no actual intervention, then the counterfactual should be approximately the same as the observed. And that's exactly what you see here. So here, you have your three sort of different states where we again build a model, synthetic control model based on data from other states, and then do this counterfactual projection. And you see that synthetic and actual actually match very closely.
So Vishal, a quick question for you. When you create this synthetic Colorado or synthetic California, is it a unique way to create it, or can you do it in multiple ways?
You can do it in multiple ways. So
they all will perform well?
So that's a good question. In fact, great question. So when Alberto Abadi initially proposed this technique, he sort of drew a line and said that the weights that you use, they should be convex, in the sense that they should all between 0 and 1. They should be non-negative and they should sum up to 1. So it's almost like a probability distribution over the other donor elements. And then you can do a regression and find the right weights. What Devrat and his students started working on, and I sort of joined the work, was we made the system robust by relaxing this condition that the weights need to be convex. So now we say the weights can be anything, including negative, because you might have some negative correlation. So I won't go into the details of what this relaxation does, but we use sort of ideas from matrix completion and classical machine learning theory ideas, and we have made the system robust and multidimensional. So it's robust to missing and noisy data, and it's also, we can build multidimensional models. So to answer your question, is there only one way to build the model? No, there are multiple ways. You can have all sorts of constraints on the weights, or you can relax the constraints on the weights, but have some assumptions on the underlying data, and build a different kind of match. So linear regression is one way to do it. We use the weights to be linear. You can use any function that you like. You can use a nonlinear function of your donor pool elements. But in practice, linear models have worked really well. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Okay. So when there's no intervention, counterfactual is roughly observed, and you can see that this is true. So this indicates another thing. We can forecast the evolution for placebos if the future evolution of the donor pool is available. So if we have the scenario where the treatment unit is at some point in its evolution, but the donor pool is ahead in its evolution, then we can actually predict where this treatment unit, or the one which we build the synthetic model for, is going to end up. So this way you can use synthetic control both for counterfactuals as well as prediction. So now I'll show you an example of how we can do predictions for COVID. So for COVID analysis, now I'll start with COVID analysis. And first thing we need to do is to do data processing. So I'm sure you've seen curves like this often, where the x-axis is time, the y-axis is the number of cases or number of deaths. People often do log plots or log-log plots. I'm not going to get into that. But sort of an important question in all these plots is, how do you align these plots? Because the virus reached different regions of the world at different points in time. In Wuhan, it was active in December or probably November. New York, it arrived in January. In India, it arrived even later. So how do you sort of plot the evolution, and how do you align the time, these time series? So one way people are doing is you start tracking a region when it hits some threshold of deaths or cases. So let's say you pick a threshold, like it could be absolute or population adjusted. So let's say an absolute threshold would be if a region has hit 10 deaths per day, then you say, okay, let that be equal to 0 and align the axis. So here what I'm showing here is deaths data, and the threshold that I used, which was an absolute one, was the number of deaths, daily deaths reached 100. So that becomes your t equal to 0. So there are, different ways of doing that, but at least it gives you a way to align these different time series. Now, once you've done that, then you also notice that because the virus reached different places at different points of time, the curves are also in different stages of evolution, right? So some places it's 70 days past the virus reaching, some places it's 40 days, some places it's 90 days, and so on and so forth. So what you can do is you can use this fact to build synthetic COVID-19 models. So what you do is first you pick a donor pool of regions where spread has been greater than some threshold, let's say 30 days. So then that gives you a subset of regions. So imagine them to be the rows of your matrix. Each region is providing a row. And then you pick target areas to build models where the spread has been, let's say, between 15 to 30 days. So what you'll do now is you'll build the model using the donor pool elements, for data up to 15 days, and then do the prediction of this model from 15 days onwards. And since for some of these you have data between 15 to 30 days, you can also compare your prediction with what the actual data looks like. So again, you train a model using the first 15 days of data and test using the data between 15 to 30 days. Any questions here? Okay, so I'll give New York as an example. So, I did this analysis in early April, and I built this model for New York using the first 15 days of data by aligning at t equal to 0 when New York had, I think the threshold I used there was 20 deaths. And the donor pool, on the left part of the curve, of the graph, I'm showing the donor pool and the normalized weights that the model ended up getting for building a model of New York. So two things to note here. First of all, that it's disturbingly accurate. It's very remarkably accurate. It's showing exactly where New York was headed, and the predictions worked for many days after that. Second thing that you see is most of the weights are coming from these regions in Western Europe: France, Italy, Spain. Now, what happens if you remove Western Europe from the donor pool? So what I did was I created another model, and I removed these countries, France, Italy, Spain, from the donor pool, and then built another model. And what you see is now the predictions, the red curve is optimistic for New York. The actual predictions compared to where New York ended up, the predictions were much lower. But what you see is, oops, sorry. Yeah, what you see is that the fit is near perfect in both cases. Whether I have the Western European nations in my donor pool or not. And that, you can maybe say it's an example of overfitting. So picking the donor pool, the right donor pool is very important to get accurate predictions. On the other hand, picking sort of different donor pools based on characteristics like when did they impose a lockdown, what kind of lockdowns they impose, enable you to do some sort of counterfactual prediction. So, on the right curve, the optimistic prediction is showing that if New York had behaved like California, Switzerland, and Wuhan in terms of lockdown, doing early lockdowns, maybe the death toll would have been lower. So this is the idea of how you can do prediction as well as counterfactual using synthetic control models. Any questions so far? Okay. So now,
Vishal, one question. So what is your statement regarding the right graphs? You're saying that, so your conclusion is that if we had followed those models, I could have had fewer deaths. Is that so? You're sort of still drawing that conclusion?
I'm still drawing that conclusion, and I'll make that conclusion more concrete shortly. But yeah, okay. That's the high level.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So now, there are some problems with this idea of doing this alignment based on threshold, and I'll talk about what the problems are. So it does not account for control measures, right? Lockdown, social distancing, and all that. All those measures that different regions and policymakers make to quote unquote flatten the curve. Right? So if you look at classical epidemiological models, they depend heavily on this factor R0, the infection rate, how quickly the disease spreads. So all social distancing and lockdowns, what they do is they try to reduce R0, and the main idea there is you want to reduce R0 below 1. If you reduce R0 below 1, then the thing becomes endemic, and your curve sort of exponentially goes down to 0. If your R0 remains above 1, then the infections and cases and deaths are going to continue to rise. So all sorts of policy decisions are trying to reduce this R0. So what we can do is we can refine the idea of picking t equal to 0, not based on some threshold, but individually based on when the lockdowns were put in place in different regions. Okay. So for India, for instance, I think the lockdown 1 was announced March 23rd or somewhere around there. New York was middle of March. Wuhan was much earlier. Sweden never announced lockdowns, and the different places took sort of different approaches or different policy decisions. So what the next thing I did was I obtained this lockdown data and aligned the curves based on the lockdown data, and I'll explain the sort of thinking behind that. So first of all, I got this data from IHME, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. This is the institute at University of Washington. It's in the news because that's the model that have been used by a lot of policymakers to do predictions. IHME has been in the news a lot. There's been some controversy regarding its predictions, but they are doing sort of a great job of collecting and sharing data. So they sent me this data of very granular data of different kinds of lockdown measures implemented at different places. So let's, I'm showing you a screenshot of the spreadsheet that they sent me. For Germany, they have data based on district level and what kind of lockdowns are imposed on what date. Mass gathering restrictions were implemented, stay at home, education institution closed, initial business closures, non-essential services, all sorts of lockdown measures and the date they were implemented. And when there's no sort of available official lockdown measures, for instance, Sweden or other places, what I did was I augmented that data with Google's public mobility data set. So Google and Apple have released this mobility data set based on their measurements or using Android and iPhones of how the mobility of different people has changed. So here I'm showing you an example of Google's data for Indian states. The base level is 0. So that's the average mobility that you observe during normal times. And then the y-axis shows the change from the base level as time went down. So you can see that all of the Indian states around March 20th was when you saw this sharp decline in weekday mobility. Weekend mobility also fell, but not as much because weekend mobility was low to begin. So what you can do now is you can pick the last of the announced measures, either official or unofficial, when people in Sweden started moving less, as the strictest lockdown date, and then you assume that R0 is constant and minimum from then on, and then you can do some analysis. So first I'll show you what the impact of aligning data using this measure does. So here you see, if you align date with lockdown dates, some clear patterns emerge. So I'm showing you New York with those Western European countries, New York, UK, Italy, France. As soon as I align the data using the lockdown date, you can see all of those curves look very, very, very similar, extremely similar. On the right side are the curves with chronological date, and you don't see that pattern there. You can't make out that they are similar. But once you start observing date from the date of the lockdown, they look very similar. And the intuition again is, once you have these lockdowns, your R0 in different places becomes constant, and then those epidemiological models, you can sort of start using them. What do you want to try? Is there a question? No. Another way to sort of
I had a question here.
No, that long.
Quick question.
Is there a question?
I think there is.
This is Yogesh here. I just wanted to know that the efficacy of the lockdown would be different in different countries. The sort of strictness of the lockdown, does that play a role in this or not?
Yeah, it does. It does. I'll come to that. Yeah. How good the lockdown is, it plays a role. I'll come to that.
If you have a good epidemiological model, agent-based simulation model or something, which can for every country, exactly replicate the lockdown features, etc., and then you can construct a synthetic controller using the model output. Would that make sense?
That actually can make sense. So yeah. So I'll come to that shortly. So let me show this lockdown impact visualized in a different way. So here what I'm doing is I'm showing a scatter plot. Each point is a different region. The y-axis is representing the peak value. So when you do the lockdown, if you look at these curves, the number of deaths keep going. They reach a peak and then they start coming down. So in the scatter plot, I'm showing the y-axis as the peak value, what the peak was. The x-axis is the number of days to reach that peak. The size of the blob is how many deaths were there the day you imposed the lockdown. So, you can clearly see that the higher the number of death count when the lockdown is imposed, first of all, your peak is higher. Secondly, you reach that peak quicker. Now, next thing I'm going to show is the video visible? Is the animation visible?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. So what I'm doing here is I did the counterfactual analysis for New York. What if the lockdown had been put in place earlier? What if, when the lockdown was put in place, the number of deaths was lower? And so the animation shows the impact of doing the lockdown between 1 to, I think, 19 days earlier. And the black curve is the actual death count in New York. The green is the fitted model, and the red is the prediction. So you can see as you sort of move the lockdown earlier in time, the impact of that is fairly dramatic. You could have prevented a lot of deaths in New York. So this is coming out of the synthetic control analysis. So this I did, somewhere middle of April, and there was another model that came out of actual epidemiologists from Columbia, which made a lot of news a few days ago. And in fact, President Trump had some choice words for Columbia after that, which said that if the lockdown had happened earlier, you could have prevented a lot of deaths. So synthetic control was able to give the same answer, which these more classical models also kind of confirmed.
Vishal, I have a question here. Yeah. See, in many of the data, so the data itself appears, I mean, at least there is a belief that the data is not complete. There are cases that have not been tested or underreporting and all of those. So, do they sort of get absorbed in some manner here or get corrected? I'm not, so do you have any sense of?
So that's a great question. I mean, what you see here, what I've been showing so far is all deaths data. I've not shown cases data because cases, that measurement is very, very noisy. First of all, the number of tests available varies significantly across the globe. Secondly, the standards of testing are also very different, right?
Yeah.
Who can get tested? So the accuracy of the measurement of cases is, it's very, very noisy. You can't really trust that data.
So, but even the
death data is a lot more reliable. Even there could be undercounting and
or even overcounting.
It could, I mean, depends. Yeah, it could be overcounting, but that's at least more reliable than cases data, because cases is very sampling dependent. Who are you testing? How many tests are you doing? That sort of reflects on the cases value. That's, unfortunately, that's more accurate. So one idea that you can do, I tried using synthetic control analysis, and they'll come back to this question of that the efficacy of lockdowns is very different in different regions. Is you build synthetic control models for different regions. Then what you can do, you can use the weights that the model created as feature vectors for a clustering algorithm. So then what you do is every region has its weights. You is that a question or just somebody forgot to mute? I guess that was not a question. Yeah. So what you can do is you can build models, use the weights that the model generates as feature vectors, and then you can use a favorite machine learning based clustering algorithm to quickly identify similar groups. And what it reveals is actually very interesting. So here I'm showing two examples where, again, the alignment is done based on the day of the lockdown or the day mobility changed significantly. And you have, the first cluster I'm showing is Connecticut, California, and Sweden. There is no real reason why these three regions should look so similar. And on the right, you see Michigan and Netherlands. They're almost completely tracking each other, almost exactly tracking each other. So why is this happening, and what's the difference? The populations are different. There are lots of other factors in play. So what makes them alike and what makes them different? Well, first of all, this R0 is different. The initial value when you imposed the lockdown, that plus R0 impacts not only the peak that you reach, but also the time to peak. So if you look here, the peak for Netherlands and Michigan happened, less than 20 days. Whereas for the first cluster, Connecticut, California, and Sweden, it's happening around 30 days. The question was, what makes these things alike and what makes them different? And you can notice that the initial value is somewhat similar. The peak is similar, and the days to reach that peak is similar. So how are these the time to peak values and initial values are related? So that, this is a joint work with Chris Hollett at UMass Amherst. What we did was we started looking at the sort of classical SIR model, but based on specific initial values, and we did some approximations and analysis based on these initial values. Now, again, the assumption is the initial values reflect what was done the day of the lockdown, your strictest lockdown. So then you assume that the parameters of your SIR model are now constant. Before that, there was a step change in parameters. So you can think of lockdown as kind of a control action that you do on this system, and then you can observe the feedback of what happens based on this control action. So I'm not going to go into the details of this analysis, but what we're able to obtain are both predicted peak values and peak times as a function of the infection rate R0, the population of a region. So N is the population of the region, and the initial conditions, Y0. How many cases were present? How many people were infected the day you imposed the lockdown? So, when you look at that, it reflects what you sort of hear about flattening the curve, that when you do this lockdown and when you do the flattening of the curve, your peak reduces, but the peak also gets delayed. But what we have done here is sort of obtained a better relationship with what the conditions were when you impose the peak, and how that reflects in the evolution. So one of the things that this model sort of assumes is that the relationship between cases and deaths is a simple time delay. This is reflected in the question that Manjunath asked of, do we have accurate data or not? Well, you can see this time delay reflected in places where you have reasonably accurate data. The red curve is the cases data, and the blue curve is the deaths data. And you can see that it's a time delayed version. It's about roughly 21 days delay between cases and deaths. So that's the rough period between getting infected and either recovering or unfortunately dying. Secondly, geographical units are very important to draw conclusions. So here what I'm showing are cases and deaths data for 3 different regions. One is US, that's the top curve. The next one is US minus New York. And the red one on the bottom is only New York. So if you look at US and you have included New York in your model, then you can see that around mid-April things started improving in the US. But you take New York out of that data and you see that the things did not really improve for a while, and it kind of plateaued. Whereas the full curve, which includes New York, showed an improvement earlier. So it's very important to kind of draw the right geographical boundaries and analyze data in the right geographical boundaries. So this is related to Sandeep, what you were mentioning to me, that you want to do ward level simulation and understand smaller geographical units. So there's this some tension here between having a small enough region so that you have an accurate model, but sort of large enough numbers that all these sort of differential equation fluid models are reasonably reflective of reality. But what this clearly shows is that there is this time delay happening, and as time has gone on, the case fatality rate seems to have improved. So here, the other thing that I wanted to point out is that, the y-axis is common for all the curves. So if you look at the bottommost curves, which is New York, cases and deaths, you see that deaths are riding on top of the cases, right? So, so that reflects whatever multiple between the number of cases and the number of deaths for New York. When you go to US as a whole or US minus New York, that thing is no longer true, right? Cases and deaths are for US as a whole are about the same, and for US minus New York, deaths is actually lower than cases. So what that really means is that the multiplier or the case fatality rate is lower as time has gone on. So initially, New York got really badly hit. We didn't even have enough hospital capacity, or people didn't have any understanding of how you can sort of treat people. Whatever the reason might be, the case fatality rate seems to have improved over time. So now what I'll talk about sort of the final part is this new analysis that I've been doing is, what is the impact of opening up? Now, after the lockdown, several different regions across the world are now opening up. And the question is, what is the impact of opening up? So specifically in the US, several states have opened up, whereas several other states have continued the lockdown. So what you can do is, you can build a model for states that have opened up, but use the ones that have remained in lockdown as a donor pool. What that will give you? That'll give you the counterfactual of what the situation on those states would have been had they continued with the lockdown. And you can do the reverse. Build a model for states that have remained in lockdown, but use the donor pool as states which have opened up. That can give you an estimate of, what the cases or deaths in these places would have looked like if they had opened up. So, this is preliminary work. I'll show you a few results. But here is an example for Alabama. Alabama is one of those states which has opened up. Beaches, restaurants, salons, and more. They're all open. And roughly the date around which they opened, I tried to build this model. And again, the black curve is the cases data. I built this model using cases data from states that have not opened up. And you can see that the number of cases in Alabama are more than the prediction. The prediction, which is a red, showed a flat trend line, eventually reducing, but this thing seemed to have gone south. Here's another example, a famous case of the Lake of the Ozarks. I think if these images were flashed around the world. Again, the trend here seems to be that the number of cases is on the rise, whereas it should have fallen. Here's another example of Mississippi. Again, the trend is very clear. According to the model, things should have started reducing in Mississippi, but now they're going up. They're another one of the states which have opened up early. Now, it's a judgment call whether you can live with these increase in cases or not. But at least what the synthetic control does is, it gives you kind of an effective way to analyze all these policy impacts. So you can build this what-if scenarios and try to understand what's happening. So I'll stop here in terms of conclusions and ongoing work. And in the time we have remaining, I'll take questions.
So questions? So Vishal, my question for you is, have you tried any of this for India?
So India, I don't have granular data.
Mm-hmm.
I have India, data for India as a whole, but what I showed here, I think granular data is very important to draw sort of good conclusions.
What kind of data do you need for India?
I'm sorry?
What level of granularity, what data would you need for India?
So right now the data sources I have just have India as a whole. I don't have state-wise breakdowns or district-wise breakdowns. So,
Right.
but once I have that, it should be very easy for me to do the analysis.
So district-wise, you just need what number of deaths, number of cases.
Number of cases, yeah,
The
basically.
you need a time series, right?
I need the time series, yeah.
That should be available, right? It's
Yeah, it should
Yes,
be
it
available.
should be available somewhere, and
Actually, it's a little more. I mean, those websites that are maintaining it, they probably have it. I think if somebody, I think I tried to track those websites briefly, but I have not kept that. So there was, I was doing a daily dump of that for a while. I might have it somewhere. I'll look at it again.
yeah, there's this person who I saw was posting a lot of that, but then I think she got into some sort of controversy. Shamika Ravi.
Yeah. She got into trouble. Yes.
what happened?
She had she seemed to have a lot of source data.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think there are complications in India because I think ICMR is controlling the data and the government is, what is publicly available is not, it's somehow I think is being obtained through other means. It's not, I don't know how official those are from what I've understood.
Because I have mobility data for India.
This is Google or Facebook? Facebook is also trying to get some of that work done
Google.
for India. Yeah. But
This is
Facebook,
Google.
but what exactly is the definition of mobility in that you have? I mean, does it mean anything?
So they have various categories: work, grocery stores, shopping, and all that.
Yeah, but see, most of those are for those who have a smartphone. So I think the complications that are coming up, and especially if you look at Mumbai, a significant number of the cases are not always from, let me just say, smartphone owners.
True, but if you have a reasonable number of smartphone owners, even in those areas, I'm sure people have these Android devices. So you don't need everyone to be using them, right? It's a sampling. So you can get reasonable estimates, but I agree. I mean, this is something that I discussed with Sandeep. Yeah.
Yeah. So at least when I was looking at the Facebook data, it didn't look like that sampling was very good. I mean, anyway, Facebook and Google might be different. So yeah, you're right. So
Apple has also released data, but Google has.
Apple and the people who own Apples are not dying. So, or at least not that I know of. Yeah.
Well, I survived.
So Vishal, one more question for you. When one does fitting, I think it's natural to report cases where you have successful fits. But do you also see cases where you have fitting is just not working out?
Yeah. Especially when you have low numbers, fitting often doesn't work out. So,
Vishal, what is a good number to fit? What kind of numbers would you want to have a fit from your experience?
It's
of some order, yeah. A few hundred.
A few hundred would be good. So here, you see my screen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The fit here is even for Florida is reasonably good.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on how many samples you have, and also for the synthetic control itself, we have this diagnostic test. So what essentially you do is you take the matrix of your data and do a rank calculation and see if it's low rank or not. If it's not low rank, then you cannot ever hope to construct a synthetic model, right? So what often the data tells you whether it's low rank or not, and then you can go from there.
Okay, got that. Yeah.
So can you get how do you get R0 from your analysis?
So that's the thing. Synthetic control is completely non-parametric. It's entirely data driven. So I don't actually get R0. I let the data speak for itself. So when I was talking about those clusters, where is it? Here, yeah, right. So these clusters were kind of automatically obtained from the analysis. You just build these synthetic control models, use the weights, and did clustering, and they end up clustering places which have similar R0, or where the N and Y0 kind of match up. So I'm not estimating any R0. It just kind of the data speaks.
But here is something slightly confusing to me. Sweden did not impose lockdown, right?
Yeah. But
California did, and yet you are saying they are similar.
Yeah. So if you look, they are similar. The population of Sweden is a lot smaller than California, right?
Uh-huh.
So the formula that we derive depends both on N and this R0. So the difference in R0 is compensated by the population. And the other thing that I was mentioning here is, even though Sweden did not impose a lockdown, people voluntarily sort of stopped moving. The only lockdown measure that they imposed was they had a restriction in mass gatherings. But if I look at Google data for Sweden, and if I look at district-wise data, they did have a reduction in mobility. This was entirely voluntary. It was not as much as other places. So here you see the dip is like 20%, whereas other places it was 40, 60, 80%. That reflects back in the fact that, okay, the R0 that was now active after people voluntarily stopped is much higher than what the R0 is in places where there was a strict lockdown. And that's why, even though the population of Sweden is much lower compared to California, it's behaving similarly.
So sorry.
Carry on.
Yeah. So the question is that, see, low rank is okay, but suppose I would like to use a non-linear combination, right?
Yeah.
Then I don't have to insist on the matrix being low rank, right?
Right, but you need to have some sort of conviction that you are able to do. You can do the usual sort of machine learning, test, train, check, and you can do that. Yeah.
Because the reason I'm asking this is actually what we see in India is it's almost a direct correlation with population density. I mean, of an area. So in a way, Dharavi, etc., is highly dense, and you are seeing the kind of things going on in spite of almost 60-day lockdown, right? Yeah. Whereas I think, on the other hand, in some other places, it will be much less. So to do one, trying to say that Dharavi is a linear combination of, some other places, it might not really work. But
you need to find sort of enough similar places.
No. Even supposing I put in the population density, my weight is some way reflecting density. Say that it's no longer linear, but it's some kind of. In other words, I would like to bring in the population density if it is possible.
So what you can do is, these curves, they are absolute numbers, right?
Yeah.
And once you have picked the t equal to 0, these curves, instead of absolute, you can have, population adjusted numbers.
I see. Okay.
Right. And once you have done that, then hopefully, the sort of age-old models work, and you should be able to interpret them.
No, but then R0 is going to be different, no?
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
Yeah. So R0 will be different, but if you do population adjusted and do synthetic control, I think you should get a fairly good match. And the good and bad thing is that this is happening all over the world. There's so much data that a Dhara will be like population is actually in Queens in New York.
Mhm.
In Brazil, in Sao Paulo, you might get some useful donor pools for very high density Dharavi-like situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vishal, I have a question here. So you said that you're not going to, I mean, I think which was obvious that you let the data speak for itself. So one of the criticisms of the IHME model was that, right? I mean, they were just too data dependent without any
This
epidemiological basis and some grounding of whatever they were trying to say. I mean, that was a criticism. I'm not sure.
That was a criticism, and what they did not account for is exactly what we did here.
Okay.
They did not account for the initial conditions when the lockdown was put in place.
Okay.
And this was confusing them as well, that New York, the peak happened after 15 days of lockdown, but California was going on, and Michigan was going on. What's happening? It should have come down immediately. And that's when I started sort of thinking that maybe I should go back to my classical control roots from synthetic control and see what's happening with the differential equations.
So your formula on the next slide.
Yeah, just to finish the thought, this explains the anomaly that you saw with the IHME models.
Got that.
And it sort of much better fits.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, how did you get this formula? This is through some analysis somewhere, or?
Yes, and I can send you the.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
I mean, you can see some of the analysis here, but.
So I just copied your overleaf code. No. No.
I'll send you the PDF.
Okay.
It's still sort of WIP, but.
Okay. That's fine. Thanks.
So just moving away from the COVID to much happier topic of money. So, in finance, people do this all the time, that you create a synthetic portfolio, which is mimicking some index, for example, then you buy low, sell high and make money. Model that is a stationary process. How does your work help there, or is it linked to this? How does one think about this?
So I think it definitely helps. I'll show you something. Yeah. So what, this is some financial analysis that I did on the impact of tariffs. Trump had imposed these tariffs on China. And so the question was, who is paying for it? Is China paying for it, or is the US consumer? So what you can do is you can build these models of goods that were affected by traffic, and build those models for goods that were unaffected by tariffs. So here you see that you build a model for different goods that were tariff affected. The counterfactual is what would have been the price if there was no tariff versus if there was tariff. So you can see that, the 6-10% difference in what people were paying for these tariff affected goods. And then you can do the same thing for placebos of goods that were not affected by tariffs at all, and you see sort of a perfect match.
I see.
So yeah, you can do it for.
I was thinking stock market.
All you require is some sort of low rank Lipschitz behavior, and it should.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, I should mention, and maybe Vishal can clarify. So Vishal tells me that he's also got interested into COVID in a serious way, because with high probability he's actually suffered COVID and he's recovered from it. So is that the reason you got interested in this, or you were doing this independently?
I was doing it independently, but that sort of added that extra motivation.
Okay.
So do you get a COVID survivor badge or something like that? Do they make these days, or not yet?
Not yet, but I'm in New York City. So I'll have 2 badges. I survived COVID and I survived
the riots also.
Riots. So they messed up my test, but I definitely had COVID. Now I'll get the antibody test done.
Well, thank you. That was that was a very engaging lecture. So we gained a great deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No more questions. We'll call this lecture to an end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Sandeep, don't forget to stop the recording.
Yeah, that's. No, I did that last time. I did that last time, and then the whole recording was gone.
Okay.
Thank you for remembering.
There's a hot mic, man.